Welcome back to the Crochet Crowdhouse with my friends over at Yarnspirations.com. I'm your host Mikey. Today we are going to do the Relax and Unwind Shawl. This is classified as a beginner level as you see here, and what I'm going to be doing today is just taking my time and showing you how to do this. Now because it's a beginner level, there's only the second row that is going to be repeating over and over and over, and we're only going to be using 2 balls today in order to make this work. So we'll be using 2 complete balls, and it is Red Heart Colorscape, and the color that I'm going to show you my sample in is using the color called Paris right here. So it's really neat, and it does transition in the coloring as you see here in the model. It's actually a lot of fun and addictive to work with, and so I'm going to be taking my time for beginners today, and there is time markers in the comments of this video as well as the video description if you'd like to fast forward, if you'd like to keep this moving along. So without further ado, let me just show you the sample and then we'll begin from the beginning. As we begin today, what's going to happen is that we are going to build ourselves a foundation chain to get ourselves started, and then we're going to crochet back and forth, and every time we crochet back and forth it's going to get a little wider and a little wider and a little wider. So the same thing is happening on the other side. So when I go to fold it on this side, you can see that it's getting wider and wider and wider on this side. So that's the only thing that's going to be taking place. And what I decided to do with this is that I had a little bit of yarn left over, so I did a little add-on to the pattern that wasn't actually there, and so instead of using these double crochets like I had, I switched it off to single crochet, and that's what I did at the end. But before we get there, I'm gonna just demonstrate to you on how to hold the hook, and then we'll begin from that part. Now everything is subjected towards you, and what I like to do is just reach into the middle of the ball, and I just like squeezing and I pull out, and it's called yarn barf when you pull out too much instead of just the tail. But because you're crocheting, you can crochet relatively quickly with this, even as a beginner, and so you just keep on pulling until you can reveal the very last strand. Now the advantage to doing it from the middle is that once you get this thing moving along, there won't be any tension coming out of the ball, so that you can control the way your stitches look. It's called tension, and so what you want to do is go all the way to the beginning of the strand that is part of the middle. So let's do that, and I'll see you back here in a moment. Before we learn how to hold the hook, I want you to create a slip knot first, and so it's the slip knot that starts this whole thing off. So you need a knot to begin so that everything kind of knots into each other. Crochet is essentially knots that are being formed into a project. So we're taking a strand and making a fabric with using knots. So with crochet, just as an added tip for you, crochet is start a stitch, finish a stitch. Unlike knitting where you start a stitch and you keep the stitch open until the end of the project, we add a stitch and we close the stitch. So it's adding and closing. To do a slip knot, all you have to do, and this is the way that my mom showed me, so there are different ways to doing it, and what you can do here is that I want you to wrap it around your finger. So just holding it like you see, and I'll go slow and I'll show it 3 times. So you're just gonna take the strand and you're just gonna wrap it around your pointer finger, and you're just gonna go over and around and around so that you see 2 strands on the top of your finger like that. Okay, second time through, hold out your finger, take your strand and just go towards the top and then around and around. One more time. So finger, around and around. Once you have that done, I want you just to use the other 3 fingers and your thumb to kind of pinch it together like this. Okay, so exactly how you have it in your hand. So you're wrapping around twice and then pinch. And by pinching it, you're keeping the tension with these 2 strands here. Now I want to play the game of leapfrog. That's how I describe it. So this is the back of the frog. This is the frog at the back of the line. This is the frog in the front of the line. So our goal is for the back of the leapfrog to go over the front one, so he's in front or she's in front or they're in front. So we're gonna take this frog and we're gonna jump over. I'll show it to you twice. And once it's over, this frog is so excited but really upset that he's on the back of the line now, or they're on the back of the line. So you're gonna pick that one up and he's gonna jump over that other frog, but he's gonna be so excited that he jumps on over the finger completely, and that is your slip knot right there. So let's demonstrate again. So we're gonna wrap around the finger and pinch. The game of leapfrog, this one's in the back, this is the front of the frog. So this one here is going to jump over, and then this one is so upset that it's in behind that it's gonna jump, and it's gonna jump so far it's gonna go right up over top of the finger, and that will be the the slip knot right there. So just kind of pull on it, and that knot there is the beginning of a great story waiting to happen. So all you're just going to do is just take your hook, whether you're right or left-handed, and put it on there, and the one leading towards the yarn ball is the one that you're going to pull, and it will magically just go around the hook. When you do it, don't pull it so tight that it changes the thickness of the yarn. Just keep it like that. And now we're going to review on how to hold the hook and the yarn. So let's review on how to hold a crochet hook. So this is an 8mm size L. They are all different sizes. So in my little basket here I have different sizes. So the thickness of the shaft, okay, the anatomy is here, it's that you have the hook, you have the throat, which is the indentation, and then you have the shaft here, and that is, the shaft is what determines the size of the stitch work. So if the yarn is thicker, usually the shaft needs to be bigger, and if the yarn is more delicate and more tighter required, then you will want to go thin. So there is a lot of hook sizes. So if I was to recommend, if you were to buy anything, if you've never crocheted before, buy a 5 or a 5.5 or a 6mm hook, and if you're in the US that would be an H, an I, or a J. And when you look at these patterns, it'll tell you what size hook that is used, but H, I, and J are one of the most common used, and that's a 5, a 5.5, or a 6mm crochet hook. So today we are using an 8mm. So when we're going to hold this, you have two options, but I only demonstrate ever one option, and let's talk about that here because there's the reason why. Now in the olden days, crochet was primarily done like this. I've never been able to do it. And also, and the reason why they did that is that there was a status level, and crochet was only for rich people. And so the women with their big ball gowns and whatever they're wearing during the day, it would look a lot more daintier as they were crocheting, and so it was a lot like this. So in time, what happens with that kind of crochet though is that you can develop carpal tunnel right here. So if you don't know how to crochet at this point, don't even think about learning it this way. I would strongly recommend that you learn it like a butter knife, like this. You will save your wrist a lot of pain in the future. So what you're going to do is that you're just going to hold it. So you're looking for a hook that has an indentation here on the front side. They all don't have it. Some are completely round. Let me just show you one that's completely round that I have a hard time using. So this is a really fancy one, and it has no indentation. The thing about it is that when it has a thumb indentation just like here, when I put my thumb on there, it automatically wants to rest flat back into my thumb. When there is no indentation, I can't look away. I have to always keep an eye on it because my thumb will change positions as I'm going around. See? It's in a different position. But here with the indentation, you can automatically know and feel it with your finger where that orientation of that hook is. So the indentation here matches the hook being in the up motion. So this is how we want to be able to play with it. So your thumb is going to be sitting right in the thumb rest itself. So the trick with crochet is that you don't want to move this hand very often. You want to keep it pretty much stable and use the rotation of just moving your fingers like this. Okay, so you want to do that. The less motion you can do with your wrist here, you will be saving you a lot of pressure in your wrist. Also when I'm crocheting, it's my feeding finger that will get tired here versus the hook, and you will see why that will be in the future. So what's going to happen is that when we go to slide on, and let me just demonstrate it here and give you some background. When you put the hook on, when you pull back on the hook, do you see how it catches onto everything? And so you can't get that hook out. The only way that you can get a hook out of something like this, do you see that it looks like an upside down teardrop? The only way that you can get a hook out of a stitch is by turning it and pushing it up and creating the space underneath so that it can slide out like that. Do you see that? So if I pull up and I have it to the side, it still catches, but if it's completely upside down, you're going to be able to get it out. So when you're working with crochet, you can slide in, but you always have to slide down. So see how it's in the up motion? I just rotate my thumb and down, and it comes right out. Okay, so if I don't go all the way down, I'm always going to snag like that. So that's something that you have to keep in mind. Now let's cover on how to get the yarn in this hand to feed the hook itself. This is the magic hand. So the hook has everything that you want to do, but everything is controlled by the opposite hand, whether you're left or right. So wherever the yarn is coming from, this is what it's going to be. I don't like to ever wear jewelry. It's just not my thing. I don't wear watches. I don't wear jewelry. So what's gonna happen is that the space here in between is a locking mechanism that you have that will clamp down on the yarn, but this finger here, you know how you hold tea and you have that finger up in the air, instead of it like the Queen of England having her pinky up in the air as she drinks her tea, in our cases we're using this finger to control tension. So when we don't want any more yarn from the ball, we slam this shut and then you will have tension, and if it's too loose, then this finger we jump up to create that extra tension that we need. So you're going to notice a constant movement of these hands here and here. Now some people, because of arthritis and whatever, they have spaces in their fingers, so some people actually rotate the yarn around their hand like the pinky there in order to get that to slam shut. So that's something that you'll have to consider, and if you're wearing rings you'll have to just improvise and find your own way in order to do it. Now when you have crochet, we have to lay it across the hand. So let's talk about that. When you're laying down your hand, just put it down and get the yarn and go over top of your hand like so. So here's the start. So right where the other hand is where that yarn is going to go to. And I want you to open up your pinky and your ring finger and let that yarn fall down underneath like that. Okay, so laying it down. I normally want to do that because I've been crocheting for over 30 years. Even when I'm trying not to, I still do it. So I want to have that come out there. And what I want you to do is slam this shut, okay, and you should have tension like this. It's not foolproof, you can do it, but it's enough to get you to crochet. And I want you to rotate your hand so that your driving finger, I don't remember the name of that finger, and your thumb come together. Okay, that's the middle finger. So that comes together. So if I want this to be tighter, I can raise this up and I get more tension, and if I need more strand, I can just lower that down and I have more to work with. So I told you that this finger is operating the tension. This finger is naturally just slammed in behind as being shut, but if I want more yarn to go onto the project, I just release it a little bit and more will come out. Okay, so whenever I need tension and there is no tension, I can just raise this up and have it, and I also have this closed in behind. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's get our hook onto this. So let's create a slip knot once again. So if you're already done with the slip knot, so remember what we did the finger and then we slammed it and then we played the game of leapfrog. So the first frog goes over, the next frog, so excited, jumps over, but jumps over the edge and comes on the other side. And I want you to put that loop right into your crochet hook. Okay, so I'm tightening this to it, but it's, look, there's no tension there. Okay, it's the same size of the needle, or the hook, sorry, and that's what we're going to do. The yarn that is going to the yarn ball, I want you to lay your hand down like I showed you and just open up your pinky and let the yarn fall, and stay close to the slip knot here. So if you pull it shut, you should have tension, like if you put that shut. So now I want you to grab this knot here underneath the hook with your middle finger and your thumb. Keep this finger away from your project. You don't need it there for this kind of idea. You do need it for in the future, and I'll show you why. So what we want to do is that we want to play within this strand here, and this strand here I want you to pretend it's a rowboat, and it's called yarn over, but just say it's a rowboat for now. And what we're going to do is that we're going to rowboat ourselves and make some chains. Before we begin, one of the biggest lessons that you can learn is that, see, it's not going anywhere. So you don't have to hold this like it's like, you can be relatively loose. It's not going anywhere. And what I want you to do is watch what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in front of this here. I call it a violin string, but I come there and I grab the yarn, and remember what I said, the only way to get it out is to rotate it and turn it upside down and then I head towards the exit right here, the exit through the gift shop, and I'm gonna come through and I'm going to pull through that loop. I'll show you several times, and you're just gonna pull through. Now you want to move this so that it captures the shaft, which is the flat section right here, and that just made the stitch the same size as the hook. Now you're going to let go of that knot and grab right with the one that you were just in, and so we shift forward and we rotate the hook, noticing that I'm not moving my wrist and I'm just pulling back, and the yarn is being fed through the other side. So I'm gonna let go and grab, and watch, I'm gonna turn my hand over. So when I turn my hand over, you can see as I'm grabbing through, see, it's just naturally pulling the yarn through my hand to the chain. So let it go and back and pull through and push forward, let go and back and forward, let go, back and forward. Now I've been crocheting for a lot of years, like over 30 years, so I'm making it look easy, but if you're new to crochet, do not give up. It'll be a lot tighter for you if you're new, because the motion is not considered natural to you like it is for me. So what I want you to do is just keep chaining. Get used to the motion and get over the fear that you're going to ruin everything. Because the advantage of crochet versus knitting is that when in doubt, you can pull out and reset yourself. And I want you to keep on going. Don't put a lot of thought to it. Just move the hook and go in and out, and in and out, and in and out. Do you get it? And my goal for you at this moment is make this chain look like it belongs to each other, so all the stitches look like it's the same size. That's the biggest challenge for new crocheters. And in time you can just continue to hold a section like this and chain without having to let go. But for now, just let go in between each. Okay. So I'm going to demonstrate for you right now on how to single crochet. It's not in this pattern, but it's a beginner tutorial, so why not? To single crochet, I want you to visualize yourself on the ground floor of a house. Now when you do single crochet, it's the first story of a house. Half double crochet, it's the second story of the house. Double crochet is the third story of the house. And the reason why I explain it this way is that we have to get to the roof of any of the size houses that we're about to do. So in single crochet we have one story of a house, so therefore the roof is just one story away. And when that happens is that we have to build up in order to be playing. So we're gonna be like Spider-Man of jumping from roof to roof. Now to go to the second chain from the hook, you're gonna go and you're gonna count this one and you're gonna count the next one. And if you're new to crochet, see that back hump there? It almost looks like a serpent's back, like the Loch Ness monster. And that's where I want you to stick your hook. So just going in to that stitch like that. And then once we are there, we are going to yarn over and pull through the one stitch only, and then push forward and then yarn over and pull through two. Okay, so I want you to go to the next one. Once you do the first back hump, do you see them? They're right there. And so you're just gonna go in to the stitch. This is single crochet, yarn over, pull through, and then pull through two, and then go to the next one. So going in, through, and pull through. I'm gonna be quiet now as I just do a whack of these for you. A whack in my language just means many. So in, through, and then through 2. How you doing over there? Are you doing good? The goal here for you is to make those stitches all look like they belong together. And your stitches will probably be tight, and maybe even your chain will be harder to get into. But in time, and I'm not saying a lot of time needs to go by, but you will find your own rhythm in a matter of just a few hours of crocheting. It does not take that long to learn to crochet. So if you're feeling lucky, we're gonna turn our work. We're not done this chain, but this is just a demonstration, and I'm going to stop here, and I'm gonna turn my work, and I'm gonna show you the half double crochet next. So when we turn our work, we just turn it and then get ready to go back up. So the second story of the house will be half double crochet. Let's come back in just a second. Now in half double crochet, when we go to start a new row, it's usually chain 2. Sometimes the designers say that chain 2 is a stitch itself. Other designers say that it's not, and you'll have to refer to the instructions for that. Usually I don't say that that's a stitch because it just never looks right. So in my opinion. So the first stitch, this is the house. We just climbed to the second floor of the house, the second story, and now we're going to go across. The first stitch is directly just straight on down in the foundation of this house, because this chain 2 is not counted as a stitch. So I want you to yarn over, and before we had been doing the chain, but I want you to yarn over, keep it onto your hook, noticing that the hook is upside down, and I want you to go right into that stitch. And the stitch consists of 2 strands on top, and you're going to yarn over, pull through, and then the secret here, because it's half double crochet, when you yarn over the next time, you're going to go through all 3 of those loops. So 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to demonstrate this several times. So the next stitch is sitting right beside there. Do you see it? Right there. So yarning over and then going right through the stitch, and you will have the 2 strands of that stitch sitting on the top. Yarn over, pull through, and then yarning over and pulling it through all 3 loops. A lot of clothing and a lot of tighter stitches are done with half double crochet. Okay, I'm going to be quiet for a bit as I continue to do more, and I'm going to go all the way back to the other side. How you doing over there? You doing okay? Half double crochet is not my favorite stitch, but it's used in a lot of clothing. A lot of baby stuff is done in half double crochet because it has the height, but it also has it keeps the thickness of the stitches nicely so that fingers and stuff don't want to go through it. So eventually you'll come to the very end of the row, and this is the very end of the row right here, and we're just going to come into the last one, pull through, and pull through 2, or sorry, pull through all 3 loops. You're going to turn your work, and I'm going to show you double crochet, which is used in this shawl that we're about to do in a little bit. To do double crochet, most times double crochet, the chaining of 3 is the 3rd story of the house. So when you chain 3, so 1, 2, and 3. is the third story of the house. It's a taller stitch. So if I look at it from this point of view, so if I come all the way back, so we had the single crochet was just chain 1. The next chain is then a half double crochet because there's 2 chains, and then finally the third one is double crochet as it has 3 chains. Now usually it counts as the first double crochet. So the first stitch is right where I'm pointing right here. Okay, it's this one here. So if it counts as the first double crochet, the first one that it's sitting out in the right here is already done. So we're gonna come to the next one and we're going to yarn over very much like half double crochet, and you're gonna go into the stitch, and again the 2 strands will stay on top. You can actually just go into 1 or 2 of those strands, and that's a stitch. That's a different stitch, but that is as you get your skills. And you're gonna yarn over and pull through. Now half double crochet, when we were just there, we yarned over and pulled all through all 3, but in double crochet we're gonna yarn over and pull through the first 2 only, and then yarning over, pulling it through the last 2. And you see the stitch is much taller. So the next stitch is right here. So you're gonna wrap the hook and going in, pull through 2 and 2. So yarn over and into the stitch, pull through 2 and 2. So keep on doing that. Just keep practicing. And in time you'll get faster and faster to the point where you will find your own rhythm and your own speed. Crochet is not a race, my friends. It's a hobby. It's meant to be fun. It's not meant to stress you out on the speed. Some people can crochet really quickly. I'm not one of them, but I am determined, so I don't take a lot of breaks. So I appear to get a lot of stuff done. That's because I'm manic about it. So I'm gonna come all the way to the end of the row. And because the last row had a chain 2 that does not count as a stitch, this chain 2 right here is not a stitch when it's half double crochet below. So I'm coming into the last one and I'm going to ignore that chain when it's a half double crochet like that. And that's what it looks like. So I'm going to demonstrate for you the treble, which will be the final demonstration for this one, and that will cover all the stitch work that we need to know for our shawl. So let's turn our work and begin to do a treble. So the treble is the next step up in crochet. So we started with a single, a half double, a double, and now a treble is the next layer. So if this was chain 1 for single, chain 2 for half, chain 3 for double, if treble is the next one up, how many chains do you think there's gonna be? There's gonna be 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this house has 4 stories on it. So this is going to count as the very first one, and do you see how it matches? So the next stitch has got to be right here. Now it's a treble, so we're not only gonna wrap one time, but we have to wrap again because the house is taller. So we wrap twice, and then going into the stitch, and then pull through, and then we pull through 2 and pull through 2, and the house is taller, so we have to do that 3 times. Let's do another one. So you're gonna wrap and wrap, so wrap it twice, and then going into the stitch, and pull through 2 and 2 and 2. Try again. So wrap and wrap into the stitch, pull through 2 and 2 and 2. Wrap, how you doing now? You doing okay? A lot of people in crochet really don't like doing trebles very much. So do you think that there's more stitches other than this as far as the height wise? Absolutely. There's what's called as a double treble, which I will not be demonstrating today, but it's the next layer up. Okay, so instead of wrapping twice, you'll wrap 3 times. And then there is even more, a triple treble, and so you'll wrap even more, and so you get higher and higher and higher in stitches, right? So you can do that. They're not used very often, but you can. There's a vintage fan stitch that has those, and they're really amazing. But you know, once you get beyond double crochet, a lot of crocheters prefer just double crochet or single or halves. So eventually you'll come to the very end, and then you're gonna come into the last one. This is called a turning chain. So you're gonna come right into there. Most crocheters forget that, and then they end up with a triangle blanket. So then they stop right here. So then they miss it, and so they're end up missing a stitch. So what you should see right now is like train tracks. Let's talk about that. So in this beginning, as we did a single, we did a half, we did a double and a treble, and you can see the layers are happening here. The yarn is changing color on its own, but you can see the layers of the height. So what we're going to do now is that we are going to progress to the project that we are intending today. It's called the Relax and Unwind Shawl. I'm going to tell you how to change the size of it if you wish, but I'm gonna go to the pattern now, and let's quickly talk about that. So back to the pattern I go. Now if you've never followed me before, what I like to do is that I like to do an overview of the pattern first, and it's not a really detailed thing. It's about a minute or 2, sometimes 3 or 4. And what we have here is that we have the instructions, and you have your hook size that you have. It has the recommended yarn. It has a little bit of a description just underneath sections like this, and then it has your set of instructions. So it tells you how big this thing is gonna be and what the starting is going to be. Now because I'm an educator on YouTube, people will say, well, you know what, I really don't like the size, I want to change it. So what I like to do behind the scenes, and sometimes I do it and sometimes I don't, is that I write a little diagram for myself. So we have all these crochet diagrams in order for us to be able to play with this particular concept. And so what I've done is that I've figured out how to change the size of this particular one by just diagramming it out, and so that's some information that I can give you. So what's gonna happen here is that I'm gonna get you started, but most times because it is a tutorial, I don't need to crochet this whole thing in order to show you what to do. I can show you through what is called as a mini swatch. So mini swatch is just something that's just smaller, of like what we just did here, where this could have been an entire blanket, but I just taught just a small section of it because I teach you enough so that it can repeat the pattern over and over and over. So I think I've yapped your ear off enough. So what we're going to do is that we're gonna get ourselves started. You can follow the instructions, and for those that would like to improvise in changing the size, be mindful when you change sizes and it's in the pattern of a recommendation of the yarn, it will change the amount of yarn that you will use. So you should be using a 9mm size M13. I don't have that in hand. That's a hard hook size to find, so I'm substituting with L is in Larry with an 8mm crochet hook. So L is the US size, and 8mm that you see here is the Canadiana and the UK and the metric sizing. Let's begin and start. So let's begin our journey. We are going to create a slip knot to begin, and I've already demonstrated how to do this slowly. We're gonna slip in our hook. Now if you want this shawl exactly as is, all you just need to do is just start chaining. The one on the hook that starts never counts as one. Okay, so when you go to start, you're just gonna go and rowboat back, so just yarn over. So 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, and go all the way to 74, and then hold for me there. For those that would like to change the size, let me talk about that next, and this is how you can alter the size if you wish. For those that would like to alter the size, when we get to go, you can just do in multiples of 6 plus 1. Here's the thing though, you need to have a minimum of 2 sets of 6 in order to make that work. Okay, so you just do in sets of 6, then plus 1. So if you don't know what that is and you're beginning, what we do is we chain in sets of 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then because I just told you you need 2 sets in order to make this work, you have to do at least 1 more set. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that will work. At the end of the chain, all you just need to do is 6 plus 1. So at the end of the chain, once you're happy with the width of it, you just have to add 1 chain. But in my case, I want to add 1 more set of 6 before I do that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And when I'm happy with it, make sure you just chain 1, and that chaining 1 will keep you in balance. And then we're going to move on then to officially row number 1. Let's begin. This is classified as a beginning tutorial, so I will be taking my time as we begin row number 1. Row number 1, we are going to count to the 5th chain from the hook. So to do that, here's number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, and number 5. So just count it back. So don't count the 1 on the hook. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, and the 5 right where I'm pinching. And remember how we went on the back hump? I want you, we're gonna do a double crochet there. So yarn over and go into the back hump of the 5th chain from the hook, and just going in, and then yarn over, pull through 1, and then yarn over, pull through 2 and 2. That was a double crochet. So this chain that I just skipped all over, that's considered a treble in this particular pattern. It says that as well. In that same chain where I just put that last one in, I want to put 2 more double crochets in there. So just yarn over and then go into the same chain, and then pull through, and pull through 2 and 2. One more time, yarn over and into the same chain, pull through 2 and 2. So your ends will always look the same. You'll have 1 treble, which that represents here, this chain that you skipped over, and then the 3 double crochets in a row. Now we want to do a chain 2. So 1 and 2, which you already know how to do, and in the chain where we are, you're going to skip the next one. See the back hump of the serpent? So 1, 2, and go to the 3rd one. It's right there. And I want you to put 4 double crochets in a row, which means that this one is going to have a double crochet, and the next 3 in a row will also have that. So there's going to be a total of 4. So see the next serpent's back right there? It's like the Loch Ness Monster's back out of the water. It's the way that I look at it. And I'm going to double crochet myself so that there's going to be 4 of those in a row. So I can see 2 so far, and do another one, and finally the last one. So this keeps it in 4s. And what I want you to do is that I want you to chain 2, and you're going to skip over the next 2 chains and go to the 3rd one and do exactly what you just did with the 4 in a row. And you're going to do that over and over and over again until the very end, where you'll see only 3 chains left when you go to do that. So what I want you to do is that we're going to continue our journey. So I'm going to skip 2 and do the next 4 in a row. So you can turn me off at any point and just do what you need to do, and then press play again when you're ready. Okay. So eventually you'll come to the end of your chain, just like you see here. So we're now going to finish up this side, and you're going to chain 2, and you're going to come into the very last chain. And so you're skipping over 2, and you're going to put in 3 double crochets into the last chain. So 1, 2, and 3, but we're not quite done. We have a treble that we need to put in there, so we're going to wrap twice, and in the same stitch put that in, pull through 2 and 2 and 2. And now I'm going to turn my work, and we're going to get ready for row number 2, which will be the repeat for this whole thing. And let's just quickly review where we are. So in row number 2 what's gonna happen is that we're gonna build this out. So you'll see that this is up on an angle, so it'll build out like this. So when we go to start, we're gonna be playing within these spaces here, but also the first and the last of every one of these boxes that we're gonna be playing with. So the first and the last for all of them. Let's begin row number 2 and let's begin our journey. In row number 2 we're going to start off with the chain 4, which will count as a treble. So let's yarn over and pull through 1 and 2 and 3, 4. In the same stitch that that's coming out of, we want to place 3 double crochets in there. So yarning over and in, pull through 2 and 2. So that was 1 double crochet. I want 2 more of those into the same stitch. So the ending is always, sorry, the beginning of the row is always going to be this. So we chain 4 out and then we put 3 into that one. Before we can move on to the next section, we have to chain 2 and we're gonna come into this stitch here before the space. It's the third one away. See 1, 2, it's the third one in this case. So you're going to double crochet in that one, right in the top of that stitch, and then in this chain 2 space you're going to double crochet twice. So going right into the space itself, don't go into any stitch work, and just go right into the space and it will hold it into there. But you're not done yet. You have to go into this stitch just in this beginning one right here. So you are creating 4 in a row like you were before. The difference is that the first one is in a block, the middle 2 are in a space, and the fourth one is in the next block. So you're going to chain 2, 1 and 2. So start the next one. So you're gonna come into the one that's ending the block. The next 2 will be in the space itself. And then the fourth one will be in the next block. So you will go and do this all the way across. You're obviously a lot wider than I am, unless you change the size, of course. So chain 2 will separate those out. So come into the last one of the same block, put 2 into the next chain 2 space, and put the fourth one in the next block. And I want you to do this over and over. So now's the time to put me on hold, and then I'll show you how to do the very end. To do the very end, you have to chain 2 after the last block, and you're going to come in right into this chain 4 space, or chain 4 stitch, sorry, not space. So you're going to wrap just one time, so it's gonna be a double crochet into that chain, and it will be 3 of those double crochets first. So 1 and 2 and 3, and the last stitch will be a treble. So you're gonna wrap twice, and then in, pull through 2 and 2 and 2, and you can turn your work, and that was the end of row number 2. So I'm going to show you row number 3, which is the same as row number 2. So what I just showed you is the same all the way throughout this whole thing. And let's begin our row number 3, which is a recap of row number 2. To begin row number 3, which is the same as row number 2, you're going to start off and you're going to chain 4. So 1, 2, 3 and 4. And in that same one that you're coming out of, you want to place in 3 double crochets. So the chain 4 counted as a treble. So to jump the block, we have to chain 2, and we're gonna come into the last stitch of that same block that we're just over. We're gonna do that one. So double crochet there. How many into the chain 2 space? It's 2. So 1 and 2, and in this case we have to do the stitch in the next block, and that has the 4 that are gonna be grouped together. Do you see those 4? So chain 2 to jump, come into the last stitch of that same block that we're currently in. So there is 1, go into the space. That's considered number 2. This is the 3rd stitch, and then the first one of the next block is the 4th, and therefore your set of 4 is done. So chain 2, come into the last one of the same block, go into the space for 2, and then the starting of the next block, and there's your next grouping of 4. So you'll do this over and over and over until you get to the other side, and then I'll show you how to finish. Now's the time to put me on hold, and when you're ready for the outside, just to push play and we'll continue. If you're continuing on, just chain 2, and then just in the last chain itself put in 3 double crochet first. If you go into a gapping space, it'll keep it open and it'll look really obvious, so you always try to go into a chain when you can. So you have 3 double crochets, and then the final one is a treble, and that's all you have to do, and you can turn your work and you can see the next row is done. So that's all you're gonna have to do. But so I'm gonna show you the alternative row that I did right at the end once I realized that I didn't have enough to do a final row. I want to use as much yarn as possible, but I'm gonna show you how I did the single crochet in the final row. So I just went back and forth, and I had enough yarn to go all the way across, but not in this stitch work. I could do a single crochet. You can make that decision on your own. So the last row is actually the neckline that will wrap around the top of your shoulders. This here will be on your upper back area. Okay, so this is the lowest part, this is the highest. To do the final round, I chained 2 and I half double crocheted into the beginning one. So yarning over, going in, pull through, and then I pulled through all 3 loops, and then I single crocheted. Okay, so I chained 2, I half double crocheted into that same one, and then I did a single crochet. So I chained 2 to jump, and in the last block, sorry, the block that we're in, I'm going to single crochet only. So just going in, pull through 2, and in the chain 2 space I single crocheted twice. So just wrap and going in. So just go around the space, and then the very first one I single crocheted, and then we're gonna jump. So chain 2 to jump. So do the last one, the chain 2 space, there's 2 of those single crochets in there, and then the beginning of the next one, and then chain 2 and jump. And so that's how I finish mine. So you can make a decision on what works for you. So I like to use as much yarn as possible without having to throw anything out. And if you would like to make yours bigger, you just get another yarn ball and just keep on going. And then you can even have it wider if you would like to. So the width is really up to you and how you would like to do it. So my next and final lesson today will be how to fasten off. So let me just take you to the edge here. So just chain 2 and come into the very last one, and I want you to single crochet and then half double crochet, and that will conclude that one. So let me show you how to fasten off using a tapestry needle in order to have the best look possible. To have the best look possible, what you can do is just trim your yarn so it leaves enough yarn here so that you can throw it through a tapestry needle, and just yarning over, pulling it through the final loop and just tug on it. That will lock it, but it won't prevent it from falling out. So you have to take this yarn here and put it onto a tapestry needle. And what you want to do is that you want to take it through a different section underneath the stitch work. Okay, so I'm going right in the middle of the stitch work itself, and I'm just pulling it through. And when I pull it, I don't want to change the shape. I'm doing it so that it's tight, but it's not like reefing on it. Going through a slightly different path back to where you were, and then finally the last pass is another slightly different path going back in the other direction. So this is called weaving in the ends, and you can use a tapestry needle, and now I can safely cut that down into the project and you'll never see that ever pop out on you. And you want to do that with any of your loose ends that you have. So when I started crocheting, I would just weave them in with my hook and they always would fall out. So any ends that you have like that, you just want to keep it within the same color. So here's another one here. I'm just gonna go underneath the stitch work. So I go through once and I go through another one twice and then finally a third time, and it just takes a few moments, and therefore you can have the security that your ends will never fall out on you, and then you can just safely cut it. So this will conclude off today's tutorial. Hopefully that you will enjoy your new shawl that you have. This was a beginner level, so I went slower than normal, and this is something that you can enjoy. So if you really like this kind of channel, make sure that you subscribe. We have our free patterns all the time, and we're always filming some new stuff from the beginner level like this, but mostly in the easy to intermediate levels. We hope to see you again, and it's Mikey on behalf of the Crochet Crowd as well as Free Education by Yarnspirations.com. We'll see you. Bye bye.